welcome to Soul of Travel. I'm very happy today to be bringing Vanessa Karel onto the podcast. She is the founder of Greet Her, which is an amazing company that is helping to address safety concerns for solo female travelers. So I can't wait to bring her to the show and talk more about the work that she is up to. So welcome, Vanessa.
Thank you so much, Christine. I'm really excited to be here today. Appreciate the space.
Thank you. Yeah, we luckily connected in one of the women's travel communities out there for travel professionals, and I was immediately drawn to the work that you were doing, and we had a follow-up call, and so I knew that my listeners would be really interested in your story. So I can't wait to share. As we get started, would you mind just sharing a little bit about yourself, who you are, and kind of what you're up to in the world of travel right now?
Yes. Hi, everyone. Well, I am based in San Francisco to begin, but I grew up in Mexico City. So you hear the accent, it's Mexican accent. And I have been working on Greet Her for a little bit over 2 years now. And I have forever been a very adventurous and spontaneous traveler. Throughout my 20s, I traveled wherever my budget will allow me to travel. It wasn't like really picking places to go to, and it was just like going to places that seemed safe to me, and I continuously did that until eventually, life led me through an interesting journey that created Greet Her. And previous to that, I was a photography producer. I had a previous startup, completely different industries, but I did study tourism and business administration when I was younger. And so like eventually circle back to tourism and being in travel. It's been a very great journey. I'm like so passionate about, connecting with different cultures, seeing how people live in different places, and really like forming an opinion of myself by myself, of like where I'm going to, instead of letting society tell me what a place is like. I think that's why I'm really drawn to travel.
Yeah. Yeah. And travel has such a great way of allowing us to have that experience. So I love that you mentioned that, because I think I just actually was at a travel event, and that was one of the most common themes of conversation, was kind of those shifts in perceptions that you have when you travel. And so if you allow yourself to have a really open mind, you don't even have to have a shift in that perception. You just get to form, your own experience of a place as you travel there. So I think that's a really valuable way of thinking about travel experiences.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, I know that you mentioned that you had another business before this, and that you really kind of define, or one of your definitions of yourself is a serial entrepreneur. So I would love to kind of begin your journey to understand, what does that mean for you, and why do you think you were really drawn to the energy of the entrepreneurial space?
Yeah, I think since I was very young, I was always thinking of ways to like make my own things work and like not wait for people to open doors to me. And then really early, after I graduated from college, I had such a hard time finding a job, and I was so frustrated, and I was like, I deserve to be in that space. And so I was like, you know what, if no one is going to give me a job in the industry that I want to work in, I'm going to create my own business and work in that industry, because I do that quality work. And that's how I began, my previous like entrepreneurial journeys. And I was like, it's never been something that like I've never knew what to do. Obviously, I was just like, oh, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna start a photography, agency. And then I started a production agency, and now I have a travel startup. And it pretty much like didn't click me right away that it was gonna go this like far, but I knew that it had potential. Otherwise, I wouldn't have, like risked as much as I've risked to build this company. And I think I like to see things go from idea to reality. I really enjoy that process. I know a lot of people are like just waiting for that golden goal, but I do love the putting the pieces together and like figuring out and then looking back I look back to the first photo and like mock-up we have of her now, and like if I showed it to you, you would die. It's so horrible, you know. And probably right now, like what we have right now, like in 5 years is gonna look horrendous. But I do like seeing the transition, and like I think being an entrepreneur means that you are good at problem solving and challenges. And I think my greatest skill is I'm a hustler. You know, I am really good at have a great work ethic, and I don't get tired easily. Obviously, they're really hard days, but I think being an entrepreneur is like resilience, you know, and it teaches you so much about rejection in a way that not college degree or master's degree can teach you. And it's really good for you, like build some like strength in your mind, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I love how you were describing the journey of business creation. I was just talking with a friend too about how sometimes I feel frustrated that I'm not very creative. And they were saying, no, you're so creative, but your entrepreneurship is like your paintbrush. And so that's how you're expressing yourself. And I would feel like that feels similar to you. You know, there's all these different pieces that go into creating a business, and some of them are more I guess how we would characterize creativity, like creating your branding or your imaging or your language. But there's also just that same thing about taking an idea that's inside of you and getting it outward kind of onto a canvas. So I do
Yeah.
feel like entrepreneurship really gives a creative outlet for people in a way that sometimes maybe people don't recognize.
Yeah, absolutely. I think creating a business is probably the most creative jobs you can ever have, because you have to invent yourself everything. You know, like you create the name, you create the mission statement, how your website's gonna look. You are the behind it all, you know, you wear all the hats, you are the intern while you're the CEO, you know. And I think that, yeah, brings out your creativity. I'm sure I mean, I know you're super creative. I mean, you might not be the painter or whatever, but that doesn't mean that you're not creative.
Yeah. And I think similarly, the vulnerability is shared because it is often, like I'm sure we'll learn as we go through your story, but it's something so personal to you that you are putting out there. And like you said, taking a risk on, which also I think is what makes it so attractive to so many people, is because it's something you're really passionate about. It's not working just for the sake of earning an income. It is bringing something to life, creating an impact. But can you speak to that part of the journey for you?
Yeah, well, absolutely. And if you think that building a startup from scratch means that you're going to be making a lot of money, spoiler alert, not true. Unless you're super lucky, one of the 1% that like has, you know, very wealthy family that can just give you angel investment right away. It was not my case. It's still not my case. And I think it's really good whenever people ask me like, how do I come up with a business idea, or like, how do I begin a startup, whatever. I'm like, okay, what is something you're so passionate about? Or like, what is something that like gets you so upset that is a problem in the world? Pick that, you know, because to me, this was something that I wanted for myself, something I wanted to solve for me. And like, and then when I started doing more research, I found out that obviously, you know, women around the world want a solution to navigate safer, or like to know that they have trustworthy contact wherever they're going. And to me, that drove me, you know, like it still drives me, because there's so many really tough days, you know, where like it's hard. You're like, oh my gosh, should I apply for jobs? Or you're like, what should I do? You know? And I think what drives me is the mission that we have and the impact, because we come with a lot of social impact and women empowerment. And even we're targeting like sustainability practices with so many of the missions that we have. And so I think that balances, you know, the challenging part of building a business, knowing that you're so enamored by what you're building and the solution you're providing.
Yeah, I think that's such a great piece of advice, is that it's going to be really hard. You're not going to see immediate success most likely. Like you said, some people find that, but it has to be something that you are so dedicated to, because you are really going to be giving it your blood, sweat, and tears to make it happen. Which I also think is why it creates such amazing things, because people are really willing to sacrifice that of themselves to create and bring something to the world. And you did mention that you created Great Her to answer, safety concerns in the travel industry. And this is really based off of an experience that you had traveling in Morocco. I was wondering if you could share a little bit of that journey and how that led to where you are today.
Yeah, and I want to say this story, and like I've been getting a little pushback lately about people being like, hey, Morocco's not unsafe. And this is not what I'm trying to communicate. What happened to me was that during 2020, when the world was a chaos, I got somehow stranded in a place in Morocco where I wasn't supposed to be in. I didn't have anything planned. I didn't know anybody. And even though I've been traveling a lot solo, and I've been to a Muslim country before and Arabic speaking, this was the very first time where like I really didn't know what to do. And like I had no points of contact. I was in a city where I shouldn't have been, really late at night. Didn't know if I was going to be able to communicate or if I was going to be safe taking taxis outside, like with no language, and I basically had one of those eureka moments, now that I think about it, where like I was looking for a service that did what Greeter does now, and it was just looking to connect with women, with someone local, and someone that would make me more comfortable personally was another woman, but from a trustworthy contact, So I kept browsing through my list of contacts and see if I knew someone who knew someone in Morocco, in Casablanca, to be more specific. And I couldn't find anybody. And then I looked through my Instagram friends and I couldn't find anybody. And then, obviously you and I connected through Facebook, but we do have a reference, right? Like we have someone that connected us together, and just meeting someone stranger online without having anything to back who they are, it's kind of scary, And so to me, that was really like the breaking point, where it was like, why isn't there a service where you can, find someone trustworthy and reliable? And I started doing more digging. And then throughout my journey in Morocco, I did get a lot of harassment, walking in the streets. But I've gotten as much harassment in Dominican Republic as well. Like it's not just that country, is a problem worldwide. And I kept looking for female guides wherever I went. And around the country, I only found one in Fez. And I was like, why? And it doesn't mean that male guides aren't great. I have had great experiences with male guides, but I just wanted to connect with a woman who like wasn't gonna hit on me or flirt with me. And I wanted to get her perspective, what it was to be a woman in this place. And so this like really sparked an idea in me. And I was like, why isn't there a easier way to book female guides, period? And then so upon returning back to San Francisco, where I live, I started doing research. And I was in a transition point in my life where I had just closed my previous startup. I was like looking for something soul-filling. So I was like, I'm going to start doing more research and maybe write a book about this. And the first thing I did was I interviewed a lot of female travelers, and almost 500 of them. And I asked them, one of the questions I asked them was, what is the hardest part for you when you're traveling around the world solo, or like especially to a new place? And 90% of them said navigating safely, knowing how I'm going to get from point A to point B, how am I going to communicate, fit in culturally. And I was like, okay, I'm not alone. A lot of us want something. And these conversations I was having in big female travel community. So it means that there wasn't a really well-known service that people were using to solve it. So this kind of like was the drops in my glass, I was like, oh my God, there might be something here. I started doing more research, and I sent my idea left to right to incubators, because I just really didn't know what to do with it. I was like, I have this idea to create something enabled by technology. And I was accepted into 2 accelerator programs. And I decided to go with one of them that was in Silicon Valley. And that kind of helped shape my idea from A to B, like I really just had like a note on my iPhone, with pages and pages of things that I was putting together. I was gonna call it Fem Passport initially, and then it turned out to be Greet Her eventually. It just sounded like an easier name to put on an app. And yeah, that's kind of like how Greet Her was born.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I think it's really great that you ended up kind of speaking with all of those women that reconfirmed what you felt, because I know that can feel like an isolating experience as well. And just to have so many people also realizing that they were having the same challenges. And I know myself traveling personally and also traveling and creating programs for other women where I'm often looking for a female guide, that I have seen the same issues. And, part of it is because maybe a female guide doesn't have a platform to share that they're working. There's not a way for us to find them easy, like they're there. And then in other places, it's not as culturally acceptable. So there aren't as many female guides, or even if they were interested, maybe they don't have a way to get engaged in that. And so I think it's such a really valuable tool from both sides of the industry. And I believe for you, that is something that you've also found as you started to onboard women to be the guides for travelers. What has that experience been, and what have you learned from those women?
It's definitely been very challenging in some locations to find them, and especially in developing countries, it's really tough. And also in countries where technology is not as embedded in their daily lives like it is in ours. Sometimes it's like really hard to get them to do our verification process, or like for them to understand everything. The system currently worldwide in tourism isn't very flexible or like very open for people to find them, and that's what I wanted to create. I wanted to create the resource that if you're creating tours, or like if someone's traveling and wants to help women's economy locally, they can find them easily. So now we have scouted greeters, and the reason we call them greeters and not just tour guides is because not all of our guides are licensed tour guides, and I will be clear about this. And the reason is because the entry point to become a licensed tour guide in a lot of countries is really tough, and a lot of women don't have access to those resources to become licensed tour guides. So we created a hybrid version of it, where we call our service providers greeters. And sometimes they're just local women who want to have an extra income in that town or in their hometown, and can provide still a good experience. We provide them training. Obviously, they have to go through a protocol that we give them. And, I think our mission and our slogan is your local bestie wherever you go. It's not the typical tour guiding experience where everything is scripted, like you will go to at 12, you're visiting the cathedral. No, this is very personalized. It's more of a concierge / tour guiding experience, where you as a traveler can choose the amount of time you want your greeter to be with you. You tell her what activities you're interested in doing, and she can tailor an experience for you based on that. We do use a matchmaking service in which like we try to match someone that fits your profile the most. So for example, we just had 2 travelers going to Tulum, and they're both vegetarian and wanted to try local food in Tulum, and so we pair them with a vegan local tour guide there, and they had a great time because they connected in those things. But yeah, in some places like Sri Lanka, recently we had a traveler trying to book us in Sri Lanka, and it was impossible for us to find a greeter on time. Now we do have a few, because from that effort we found some, but we couldn't get it to the traveler in time, because in some places like that, everything's still really far away from being technologically enabled, and it's a challenge,
Yeah, thanks for kind of sharing that. I think that's something not a lot of travelers are aware of, especially in the context of certified travel guides and tour guides, and what that takes in some countries. In some places, it's really a full degree certification. Sometimes it's just a paid program that does also take a long time commitment. And you know, people listening to the show will also know that is a barrier in and of itself, is for women to have the time and space for that education, or to have the access to the income to pay for that. And so that's one of the things I really loved about Greet Her when I heard about it, is that this is a lot lower barrier for women to be able to engage as local tour guides, but that you're still vetting them. So as a traveler, I know that I'm connecting with someone who knows what they're doing and has had to go through a process, and that is offering me that safety and security. We've pretty much walked through the process, but can you just kind of clarify, like, if I am someone traveling and looking for a guide somewhere, what would that look like working with you and using the Greeter platform?
Yes, currently we're going through a transition period with our platform, where we're moving it more as in like you will be picking by city where you're going, and then you'll see the pricing. Right now, if you guys are listening today you can go and find a list of countries where we have our greeters in. And you can select book a greeter in Mexico, for example. And then throughout the booking process, we ask you in which city. And so let's say for this example, you say Mexico City, and then you select the hours, 2, 4, 6 hours. And then during that booking process, you tell us what activities you're interested in doing or things you want to see in that place. And you choose the meetup spot and the date, right? And then from that, we take that from the back, and then we match you with someone, and then we confirm them with you. And then you're connected with your greeter before you even meet, which is really exciting too, because these greeters are told to give you the tips you need, and sometimes like when you're traveling somewhere, the most valuable resource is someone that's actually there, or like can tell you like, hey, should I actually be booking accommodations in this area? What do you think? And someone can give you like a little bit of advice before you even travel, and come up to a conclusion like, hey, the greeter will be like, this is what I propose based on your interest. Does that sound good to you? And then you guys meet up. We tracking everything from beginning to end to make sure that everybody's maintaining our guidelines and safety protocols. And then that's it, and you have fun. A lot of times our travelers and our greeters have a great time, and then they decide to meet up again or book again. And I don't know if you have any more questions.
No, I think that's great. I just was wondering, wanted people listening to know kind of what they could expect and who this might be for. So I think that gives a great idea of the experience. Previously, you mentioned targeting some sustainable development goals, and that is a part of your passion also with this business. I would love for you to share what specific goals that you are really working to support, and how your company is addressing those.
Yes, absolutely. So we are a for progress company, which means that we are targeting some of the most important SDGs, which are to reduce safety risks for women and inequalities in the workforce, sustainability tourism, and income opportunities for women. So by booking a greeter or Greet Her services, your money is being well spent, because the vast majority of it is going to them. And we take a percentage for to keep the lights out, and for just having personnel looking through the verification process, training and whatnot. But we are paying them above fair wage, and we're providing women with a very flexible gig economy. And I think that's really exciting too. For me, it was really important that always has been really important that when I'm traveling, I'm at least giving one of my dollars to a woman or minority groups, because it's just so much impact for the world in so many ways, and that's one of our big missions. And we actually have been just recently been named as one of the top 15 most innovative sustainable companies by the UN WTO, which is the UN World Tourism Organization, this past month, because of our efforts we're doing to create equality for women in tourism jobs. Actually, women make the majority of the tourism sector. However, they're the least paid. No surprise, obviously. It's like tell me a new story, right? But we're flipping the coin and we're making angry a lot of people throughout the process. But it's time for this to be done, and our prices aren't probably very attractive to the average backpacker, but there is a reason for it. The reason is that we are paying above minimum wage most worldwide, and obviously it's kind of a luxury too. Like you have that experience of almost having a personal guide and they show you around. In some cities, we do have greeters who have cars. Not everywhere, obviously that goes back to inequalities. Not everybody can afford a car in a lot of places, but in some places we do have that option as well. And yeah, so yes, totally, all up for progress.
Yeah. And congratulations on that recognition. And this is obviously also something I'm super passionate about. I just did a presentation on how sustainable travel can support gender equity. And so I think it's really, what you were saying, the value of a fair wage being given to a woman, especially in many countries around the world, the ripple impact that has is really immense. And so I think that was another thing that I was really excited about, and the flexibility. So even if a woman was able to become a certified guide, because of the obligations of women in pretty much every country around the world, they are not likely going to be able to take a 9 to 5 and a tour guide job is not a 9 to 5 job anyway. So one where they might need to be gone all day, multiple days, traveling to different regions, it doesn't align with the other obligations that women have. And so I love that Greer says, look, I have maybe a few hours a day when my child is in school and I don't have other obligations. So I can fit this in on my schedule and still earn an income, connect with other people from around the world. I feel like it's such an empowering and valuable process for the women who are guiding, but also then, you've shared for women travelers to really understand the context of what it means to be a woman in that destination. Again, this is something that's why I created my company, Lotus Sojourns, because I want women to have those conversations. Yeah. And this is such a great space. I mean, I just can imagine, being able to just, like you said, meet your bestie and walk to a coffee shop or a local park and have them share their memories of this area or how they engage in community. It's going to be a very different travel experience. And I'm really excited for the doors that this is opening for travelers and for females who are guiding.
Thank you. No, definitely. I think it's really important for men and women to break their stereotypes they have by starting these conversations. And obviously you and I have both enjoyed like the regular tours and stuff. I still book them and I like that experience, but this is a little different, in the way like you are getting a little more personal take from them as much as they want, obviously, but also getting a little aspect of the local gems, right? Or like the places, because all of us are different travelers, I may be the foodie traveler, you may be the fashion traveler, I don't know, and like some of our travelers, sometimes also with digital nomads, they just want someone to be local and tell them like, hey, let me show you how public transportation works here, where you should be really booking your new apartment at, like, let me show you how things work here. And our greeters are enforced to give our travelers safety tips as well, and like how to navigate with public transportation if public transportation is safe in that place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I hadn't even thought about that, but yes, what a great resource for people that are traveling in that way as well, because that is, I think, one of the things that people are really intimidated by, maybe a digital nomad lifestyle, is trying to figure out how to then actually live in a place. So it's very different than traveling in a place. And
Yeah.
so again, to have that resource where you could say, oh, great, I can have someone, spend a day with me and learn a little bit more about the area and how to create my own way of being there. I think that is really cool too. Well, I know another passion that you have is technology. So, you mentioned that you kind of were able to work with initially with a partner in Silicon Valley to kind of conceptualize this idea. And I know that you really want to support other women in tech, and you are the managing director for Girls in Tech in San Francisco. Can you talk a little bit about the barriers that women are still facing in this regard, and the need that you see for mentors and resources for women in technology?
Yes, absolutely. Really early on my founder journey for Greet Her, I realized that there's a huge gap in technology. I really wanted to, book women that were like engineers or like UX designers. And initially it was really hard to find them. Still is a challenge. I'm now more surrounded by them because of Girls in Tech. And when the opportunity arose to take the manager director role, it's a volunteer role because it's a nonprofit. I was like, I'm not sure if I can take another thing on my plate because I'm so busy, but this sounds like something I'm really passionate about because I had so many barriers and of entry point to the tech world that I just felt so strongly about. And I was like, there's something I can do to, provide resources to women who, because every business or anything you do now is related to technology. And I was like, I've seen the struggle of it, of not being a technical founder, or not being someone technical entering this type of businesses. And if we can provide, access to other women who feel like I felt, to learn a new skill, to learn how to, create a website, or like how to optimize their SEO and whatnot, why not? And that's what we do. Girls in Tech is an organic nonprofit organization globally that has chapters all around the world. So wherever you guys are listening to, look up if your city has a chapter there. And we organize non-technical and technical events. Non-technical events are more like soft skills that you can learn how to, pitch to brands to land gigs, or like apply for jobs, how to craft your LinkedIn page better for landing more jobs or whatever. And the technical side of it is like learn how to code Python, and or like learn how to prototype UI frames. And it's really fun. I think it's a great motivation for us too. And literally the mission is to bring more women into tech roles as well. And or if women that we see a lot of women in transition, or women who took a break for to become mothers, and they want to enter back in the workforce, and they're like, where do I even begin? And I'm not a mother, but like I see how challenging that would be, like things are changing so fast, year by year, that like we try to provide those resources very accessible. Most of our events are for free, so really, really cool.
Yeah. And as an entrepreneur, I feel like you have to have some sort of tech background these days, because my primary staff is tech, right? So all my support systems are just systems that I put in place to automate things, right? It's because I can't do everything. So every once in a while, I'm like, okay, I'm going to learn this new technology, put it into place in my business so it can streamline, so I have more time to focus. And I think a lot of times people maybe would get caught up from creating something because they're resistant to learning that technology, or it's really intimidating. But I also think the idea that technology is a standalone industry is also changing, because like you said, really technology is everywhere. Some places don't have as much access to it, but it is such a part of our daily lives. And so I think empowering women to feel comfortable and not like they have to outsource every bit of technology in their job, I think that's really important.
Yeah, and by the way, you did a great job. I received your automation, like email reminders. I was like, oh my gosh, she's got it all figured out. She's
No,
done.
but that's one I know.
Good job, good job. Yeah, and it's so many things to learn, like as an entrepreneur, it's impossible to know everything. Like, a lot of things you figure out as you go. And I think there is organizations like Girls in Tech and many others. I'm also part of a few other organizations that like support women in general. Find them, as like if anybody, whoever's listening, like find these organizations because there's so many great resources, and the networking opportunities really do open like worlds, and it is like having conversations like the one you and I had before this call even happened, that like, people you're like come up in their mind and they're like, hey, I found this for you, maybe you'll benefit from it. And I think it's been a long time since we as women are not supportive of each other. I think now it's very much trending, and let's keep the trend going. And it's really good to like just see what is in your city and what other resources you can tap into. And I had no idea, like I had to, at the beginning I was like, where do I even begin? And it took a lot of knocking doors at the beginning, but now I'm like, oh, there is this whole world of organizations that support you.
Yeah, I agree. I think there are so many ways that you can find support. And I think community is so important as entrepreneurs. And one of the things I wanted to mention, that you were just recently accepted to another accelerator program by Expedia that's focusing on inclusion and diversity. So congratulations
Thank
on
you.
that, because I know that's exciting.
Yes.
But what do you think that, you mentioned there are these communities, but how important has that been to you? You started with one accelerator, and now you're able to kind of move into another one that's a little, a different focus. But what value has that added for you? And how has that also kind of allowed you to focus in on your values aligned business creation process as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think this accelerator program came at the perfect time, this is more obviously it's focused on accessibility and opening the world to travelers that are in minority groups. We're talking about travelers, female travelers. We're talking about travelers with this help me out here. I'm thinking in Spanish.
Disabilities or
Disability.
accessibility.
I was gonna say discapacity. That's in Spanish. Disabilities, travelers in the LGBTQ plus community, and it's really exciting that people are looking this way. Big organizations, big corporates like Expedia are realizing that these are untapped groups that have money, and like we need to create tools and resources and services that serve for them. And it's been such an amazing experience already. Like it's only been 1 month since we kicked off the program with Expedia, and we got a chance to meet the other startups that are creating amazing products for people with disabilities, people in these sectors. And I think it's obviously picking up momentum right now, and it's been forever overlooked. For us, it's a great opportunity. We're trying to create partnerships with them. I'm trying to learn I'm a huge fan of, I don't know if you're familiar with this startup called Wheel the World, but they do experiences and tours for people in wheelchairs. And like I turned into that fangirl when I met the founder, and he happens to be in my cohort. And I'm trying to learn from him because I want to be able to teach some of that back to our readers, so our female travelers with disabilities or on wheelchairs can use our services too, and it takes being in these rooms for you to realize, oh my God, I have not thought of what it means to be in a wheelchair inside a plane, because I am fortunate now and never having to think about it. But that doesn't mean that there is millions of people that need solutions for this, or blind travelers, so to me it's been really, really like a learning curve like this, like, oh my God, and it's not because I'm a bad person, it's just like I hadn't thought of it because I didn't have it around me. And so I feel like I thrive when I'm put in situations and communities that are like I don't know anybody or anything about, because you just like submerge yourself. And it's really, really exciting. And I really, really recommend people who are traveling to look for these smaller companies that are creating change, because with your support, they'll become bigger and social impact will like be really, really showing, And there's even like this startup that is it's called Become Rentable, and it's by this older woman who I'm really excited that she got this recognition, and she's helping people with properties make sure that they are accessibly friendly, and going and measuring doors and whatnot. And it's really exciting, to know that solutions like these are being built.
Yeah. Yeah, I love these spaces for businesses to grow in, because like you said, you're learning from their experience and expertise as well, but you're also learning about the gaps that you have, and you're also being really inspired and motivated. So even if your businesses aren't really similar, there's still so much to learn from one another. And I think, you mentioned earlier that, the dynamic between women not supporting each other and really supporting each other. I feel like I have seen that as well. And I think in these spaces that competitive drive is dissolving, and this idea of really wanting to support one another is really powerful to just see that happen. And like you said, we had a call, and then now I know more about who you are and what you're looking for. And if something comes my way, I'm like, okay, Vanessa needs this. And like, I have no hesitancy, or there's no question for me to think, well, but if Vanessa gets this, is this going to mean I can't have that? Like, that thing doesn't come into my mind at all. I think naturally it doesn't, but I also think the ability for that to happen without it feeling like it's going against a social norm is becoming more common. So I appreciate that. And I'm in a fellowship right now with Vital Voices. And today we just had a call, and there's women from 40 different countries who all have impact driven businesses that are related to also the UN SDGs. And we were talking today about like, how to understand what that means, what your story is, what's your strategy aligned with those sustainable development goals. And it's so interesting because we were also talking about the cultural context, because if we have women from 40 different countries around the world, all of these ideas mean different things and represent different challenges based on where we are. And for me, like, I'm excited to grow my business, but almost more than anything, I'm excited to have this broader understanding of what business looks like for women around the world. Like, every time, kind of like you said, you're like, I've never thought about that, or I've never had to think about that. And that growth, I think, for me as a professional will probably even be more important than whatever I create in my business.
I agree. I'm so excited for you. I'm so
Thank you.
excited that you're in this fellowship. I think you mentioned that before. And I think, when I began my business, I have really great girlfriends around me, but none of my friends had businesses. So I had to go and make new friends. I kept my old friends too, obviously, but like I had to go make new friends who were building companies. I'm so sorry about that. And that like really has taught me a lot, because there is a lot of support from them, and something that we should all know is that your success doesn't take away from my success. And I really seen it building this company from other founders and from other business owners, because we understand how hard it is, to like build a company or a business. And to me, that's really exciting. And any way I can support anyone, or like if someone comes to me with advice, I'm like more than happy to provide it, because I have been lost for a long time, building this business, and like I really needed mentors. I was like, who do I ask for this? And now I do have a network. But it took a lot of time and effort to build it.
Yeah. And thank you for sharing that, because I think that is also, some people maybe see someone who has a business in the direction they want to go and they feel intimidated about asking them. But I would say the same to me. And I also offer my advice and support wherever I can. But maybe don't be intimidated to reach out, because I do think so many people are excited. Like, we get excited about your business as well, and can offer insights and offer connections. And I think people should really take advantage of that, and embrace that when people offer it, and not feel like it's an empty offer, that people really do mean that when they say that they want to help to support you to grow your business. Well, before we wrap up, Vanessa, I really appreciate this. I'm sure people can find you easily, but where would they look for Greet Her if they want to use that service on their next travels?
Yes, so Greet Her is a combination of two words. I initially wanted it to be called greeter.com, but that was taken. So that day I was really upset, and I was just looking at my notebook and I was like, oh, wait a minute. And then I combined Greet and Her. That's why the name. And so greether.com, you can find us. Hopefully next time on your show, I'm able to tell you download our app. Not yet, but in the process of it. And we are on Instagram at greet.her. And I am on LinkedIn as Vanessa Karel. So if you guys want to connect there, I'm happy to. And info at Greet Her, if any of you wants to ask us anything or want to collaborate with us or try our services, let us know, and I'll be happy to chat more.
Great. Thank you so much. Well, to end our call, I just have a series of 7 rapid fire-ish questions. So we'll jump into those. And I really appreciate your time today. It's been so fun.
Likewise.
Thank you. What are you reading right now?
Oh my God, I'm about to reveal this. Because literally I went to bed reading it, and I don't remember the author, but it's called Motherhood. And it's a book about deciding why women decide or not to have kids. And I'm not near that, but like I just wanted to have some thought-provoking book to read about it. And I went and read it. I was like, what is the best book for it? And apparently that this came up, and I started last night.
Oh, that's so interesting. Yeah. I love that there's a resource for that. Also, yeah, people listening, there's a resource for everything. Like, if you are curious about learning, I feel like the ability to have free or affordable education on any topic in this day and age is something I'm constantly mesmerized with. So thank you for sharing that. What is always in your suitcase or backpack when you travel?
A scarf. I always have a shawl on me. It has saved me so many times, as a towel, as a beach blanket, if I want to cover my head, or like for everything. I always have one near me.
Yeah. To sojourn is to travel somewhere as if you live there for a short while. Where is a place that you would love to sojourn?
Oh, that's cute. I think right now I would pick Nepal.
What do you eat that immediately connects you to a place you've been?
Oh, tacos. I mean, I grew up in Mexico, but just tacos. I'm like, oh my God, I miss home.
I'm getting ready to travel with my girls for an extended period. And my one daughter, she's like, I just can't wait till we get to Mexico so I can eat tacos every day.
That's
Her
so
favorite
cute.
thing.
I love it.
Who was a person who inspired or encouraged you to set out and explore the world?
My dad. My dad since very little, like, kept telling me, I don't know, like nonstop. But I'm not sure if he regrets it now because I kept traveling. But he always was like, I want you to travel the world, I want you to see this place. And he traveled a lot. He's a journalist. So I saw him traveling a lot when I was little, and my parents always prioritized travel, and they got stuck with me. So I did listen to my parents.
That's good. If you could take an adventure with one person, fictional or real, alive or past, who would it be?
Oh my God. Like an adventure, like a travel trip.
Yeah.
I think I would go somewhere with Anthony Bourdain and just have like the best meals ever, that would be fun.
Yes. The Soul of Travel is a place where we can honor and elevate the work of women around the world. Who is one woman that you admire and would love to recognize in this space?
Hmm. Uh, I really love the community that Evita from Nomadness has created. I think she's up to something really exciting, but there's also the altruistic traveler, Bianca. So I just named two persons. Really stoked about what she writes about, always like how to travel altruistically. And I'm a huge fan of her writing. So those are two bonus points.
Thank you. Yeah, you get extra credit. Well, Vanessa, as I mentioned, this has been such a great conversation. I have been so excited to bring it to the podcast, and I really hope that people reach out to you both as travelers and collaborators and as potential guides in different destinations. And I wish you all the success, and I can't wait to have you come back and hear how things are going in a little while as well.
Yes, I would love to. And I hope you can try greet her while you're in Mexico, with your daughters. That'd be
Yes,
lovely.
I would love to do that. Thank you.
Thank you.